Hi friends, in this video I'm going to be sharing my background, my own fertility story, my happy ending, and why this channel can help save you time, effort, and money on your fertility journey. My name is Hannah Duffy. I am a scientist and women's health researcher, but that wasn't always the case. And in this video I'm going to try and tell a little bit of my story to give you a picture about what this channel is all about and why it's so meaningful to me. It's kind of a long story, but let's start at the beginning of undergrad. I decided to study chemical engineering at Brigham Young University, which is in Provo, Utah, if you've never heard of it. I love math and science and was totally drawn to just general applications to solve problems, but also specifically in medicine. I thought it was amazing that you could use engineering to solve real-world medical problems. During the spring of my junior year, I got married to the love of my life. It's a great story. COVID had just barely shut everything down. And I called my mom up and I was like, "Hi mom, I'm getting married on Friday." Because that's what you do when the world shuts down, right? Let's get hitched. She was like, "Okay, but I'm coming." And I'm like, "No, you're actually not coming. Like, we're gonna elope and this is just how it is." And she's like, "No, I'm coming. Like, I will be there. No matter what time it is, like, I'll be there." So my mom and my dad and my husband's parents both flew into Utah. Neither of them are local. And we had this beautiful ceremony at the edge of a lake with, of course, some cowboy music in the background and people fishing on the side and catcalling us as we were probably illegally getting married because we didn't really have permits or anything like that. But anyways, that is a part of the story because we knew we wanted to have kids, but not immediately. So I went on hormonal birth control, the Nexplanon arm implant, if you've heard of it, which was the most effective one that I could find at the time. That didn't involve anything going up, down there, if you get what I'm trying to say. After I graduated with my degree in chemical engineering, I went on to get my master's and PhD in biomedical engineering at the University of Utah in Salt Lake City. So here's what I did while I was a student and also working. I did both clinical and animal research and spent a lot of time in the University of Utah Hospital, which was just down the street from my lab. My dissertation focused on methods and strategies for reducing infection after surgery. I got to build and test a lot of drug delivery mechanisms. My coursework focused on medical device design, and I competed and won money in the bench to bedside medical competition. Meanwhile, I was a student and working as a graduate researcher. My husband and I were having trouble getting pregnant. When I got my Nexplanon arm implant out, I was literally asked if I wanted to get another prescription for birth control because I could get pregnant at any time now. As kind of an aside, I think the message that most young women, myself included, receive from the time they are a teenager throughout their birthing years is don't have sex, have safe sex, you can get pregnant at any time. Aha, funny joke. Yep, definitely not true. When I was 26, I got my first positive pregnancy test in April of 2023. Cam and I were elated. Unfortunately, I miscarried while working at the vivarium, so I was actually running a study. There was something soul-wrenching about seeing an ultrasound without a heartbeat, and we were incredibly heartbroken and frustrated. Later that year, we became infertility patients. During that first infertility appointment, I remember I brought up the possibility of having a PCOS diagnosis. PCOS stands for polycystic ovary syndrome. And I asked the doctor if we could do some sort of workup to confirm that if this was it or if we could at least rule it out. So PCOS, in order to get diagnosed, you have to have 2 out of 3 main criteria. The first criteria is irregular periods, which I definitely had at that point. And then the second criteria is more androgens than normal. So usually you just take a testosterone test and see if you're above the just normal threshold. And then the third criteria is polycystic ovaries, and that is usually visualized via a transvaginal ultrasound. So they just stick an ultrasound probe through your vagina. Then they're able to take a look at your ovaries. After performing that workout and confirming that yes, I did have PCOS, we did several medicated cycles with letrozole. I think the trade name is Femara. Basically, it was just to make sure I was ovulating and to make my cycles a little bit shorter and more or less regular, even though there's nothing regulating about using an estrogen blocker in your body. But regardless, I took it. We did several medicated cycles. They usually have you time intercourse really carefully and then monitor your follicles as you're doing that, just to make sure that you do indeed ovulate. And with that, we didn't have any success, so no positive pregnancy tests after a couple cycles there. But we did confirm ovulation, everything was looking good, the endometrial lining was all looking good, according to my memory, which is a little bit hazy of that point in my life. And then during this time, I really dove head first into fertility research. So books, journal articles, courses, learning literally everything that I could. I enrolled my husband Cam and I in a couples online fertility class. He was not stoked about that, but I was like, hey, this is gonna be awesome. And I think we probably made a deal. I had to do something that he wanted me to do. But we did it, we completed our course. I thought it was awesome. I knew a lot of the content, but I felt like it really made us on the same page. And then I also signed up for a graduate level reproductive epidemiology course as an elective in my program. Not to boast, but I'm kind of going to boast here. With all the readings that I had been doing, I very easily got the high score on both the exams in a class full of clinicians and people who actually study women's health, thanks to my obsession with fertility. So for better or worse, it at least got me a good grade in class. The next February, when I was 27, I got my next positive pregnancy test. This was on an unmedicated cycle, so just totally normal. And it was a very faint line, but unfortunately I got my period that same day. And I remember looking at the trash can because I didn't see a positive line right away, so I threw it away, and then I came back later and I pulled it out of the trash can, and yes, there was a second line, and then I started bleeding and I was just an absolute wreck. Yeah, wasn't good. After that positive pregnancy test and subsequent period, which is known as a chemical pregnancy, I made sure over the next 6 months that I had implemented every strategy that I had learned about optimizing our chances of a healthy pregnancy. And Cam and I, after talking, made a plan to do IVF if we weren't pregnant by the end of the summer. My rationale for this was really multifaceted. First, after implementing quite a few targeted lifestyle changes, I really no longer qualified for a PCOS diagnosis because I was having regular cycles. So therefore, I only had 1/3 of the diagnostic criteria, and so I didn't actually qualify to have PCOS anymore. The next reason was that the medicated cycles hadn't worked. So I knew that we had an egg and a sperm, and the endometrial lining looked pretty good, and we just had a lot of questions. And really, as I was talking with my fertility doctor, he re-diagnosed me with unexplained infertility. No one wants to get that diagnosis. And he said that it's likely that my egg quality was the issue. And the only way to test for that is to do a cycle of IVF, because that's the only way you can see if your eggs fertilize or not. The third reason was highly just logistical. My husband at the time had a really good fertility insurance program through his work where we were going to be able to get quite a bit of money through work to do an IVF cycle. And I knew that in the future, we might not have that sort of opportunity again. So we get to the end of the summer and we do an IVF protocol. I remember that last cycle, I was like hoping, praying, hoping that there would be a positive pregnancy test and that I wouldn't have to start on those horrible meds. But there wasn't. And so we went through with it and we jumped through all the hoops that came with actually switching fertility clinics, finding a little bit of a better fit, figuring out financing with my husband's work and figuring out what our benefits were, what was covered and what wasn't. And then working out our IVF protocol with our new doctor, and honestly, endless tests and appointments. I feel like IVF is like a full-time job, and I was also a student and also doing a full-time job during all of the middle of this. It was pretty wild. We actually bought a second car, kind of with this in mind, just because driving to the clinic, driving to work, it was all just kind of very complicated. And so we started an antagonist protocol, which that's just the type of IVF protocol. And we did an egg retrieval on September 2nd. We did genetic testing because of what the first fertility doctor had said about my egg quality. But it turns out that of our 9 embryos, that were healthy and going at day 5 and then were frozen, 8 out of the 9 of them were genetically normal. So it's likely that egg quality wasn't the issue, and we still don't really know what was. We did a single frozen embryo transfer on October 15th, and on October 25th, we had a positive pregnancy test via an HCG blood test, which was an incredibly happy day. It was kind of almost surreal, like I was just waiting for something to mess up. A lot happened between October and July, but in July, our incredible rainbow baby girl was born, and we couldn't be happier. We were over the moon to welcome our daughter into our family. Okay, wow, that was a lot, but during most of this time frame, I have been using Instagram to put out general updates and thoughts about both infertility and IVF. And I got a lot of positive reception and actually had some pretty cool opportunities because of this social media blog that I was running. But Instagram wasn't really the type of platform that allowed me to generate long form content, which really, when you're talking about fertility, there's a lot that goes into it. And I felt very strongly about citing my sources and having references available. And Instagram just wasn't giving me the flexibility that I needed for that. So that's why this channel exists. Welcome to the Fertility Fast Lane. And this is my attempt to share everything that I've learned and I'm still learning about fertility so you can learn from my mistakes. And I plan to use my training as a scientist to bring data to you in easy and digestible ways. I collected so much data on myself over the past 3+ years. And it's likely going to take me quite a bit of time to process it and to actually put it out there. But earlier this year, I published my first women's health journal article. And I hope that this is the first of many to come in the future. Though I would not wish infertility on anyone, I am excited to continue to create a community surrounding infertility as we learn together about the best fertility tips and strategies. Ultimately, I hope the Fertility Fast Lane saves you time, effort, and money on your journey, and I hope to see you in the next video. See you next time.